The moon doesn't know anyone is listening, Akep, but you always are. Maybe that's why it keeps talking.
Marin Solis cataloged silence for a living. Not literally. Her official title was Senior Acoustic Cartographer for the Velant Deep Survey, which meant she spent her days aboard the Undine mapping the sound signatures of uncharted moons. Seismic hum, atmospheric resonance, the particular frequency a planet made when its tides shifted. Every world had a voice. Marin's job was to record it before anyone else arrived to change it. She noticed the boy on her third month aboard. He appeared one evening in the mapping lab's observation alcove, the curved window ledge where nobody ever sat because the cushion had been missing for 2 years, and the metal frame left pressure marks on your legs after 10 minutes. He had a battered notebook open on his knees and was copying something from the star charts projected on the wall, slowly, with the careful focus of someone who'd been told not to ask for help and had decided to manage without it. Marin didn't say anything that night. She filed it under unusual but not my department and returned to her work. He was there the next evening, and the one after. On the fourth night, Marin brought 2 cups of the dark grain tea she kept in her personal locker, the expensive kind, traded for at the last port, and sat one wordlessly on the ledge beside him. She sat at her own station, said nothing. He said nothing. He drank the tea. That was how it started. His name was Kale, and he offered it the same way he accepted the tea, without ceremony, as if all exchanges should be simple and direct and free of the weight people usually attach to them. He was 14. He had been aboard the Undine for 6 months. He was the son of one of the survey geologists, who worked the night rotation, and was, from everything Marin could observe, a decent scientist and a distracted father. None of that fully explained why Kale spent his evenings in the mapping lab instead of the crew quarters. Marin didn't ask. She'd learned over the years that the surest way to make someone retreat was to ask the question they were already dreading. Better to let the space exist. Better to sit in it until it stopped feeling dangerous. So she taught him instead. Not formally. She didn't announce lessons or write schedules. She simply narrated whatever she was doing when he was present, the way a person might think aloud if they'd forgotten they were alone. The deep hum you're hearing is the resonant signature of the iron core. Every moon with an iron core sounds slightly different, like fingerprints, except the fingers belong to geology. Kale listened. He wrote in his notebook. Occasionally, he asked a question, a careful, specific question, the kind that showed he'd been sitting with the problem for a while before he trusted anyone with it. Marin answered. Then she asked him one back. By the end of the second month, he'd started predicting resonance signatures before she ran the analysis. He was right more often than some of the junior cartographers who've been certified for 3 years. You have a good ear, she told him once, meaning the scientific instinct, the pattern recognition, the thing that couldn't be fully taught. I've had a lot of practice listening to things that aren't talking, he said. And something in his voice was careful enough that Marin understood the sentence was about more than acoustics. She didn't follow the thread. She handed him the headphones for the next recording sequence and let him sit with the sound of a moon that had never been heard by anyone before. The notice came through 7 weeks before their scheduled return to Velant Station. All personnel were required to attend the briefing. A representative from the Compact's Research Authority would be boarding at the next fuel depot to conduct a routine review of the survey data. Marin had been through 6 routine reviews in her career. They were never routine. This one arrived in the form of a small team. 5 people in the gray and silver uniforms of the Research Authority, efficient and courteous, and asking questions that felt friendly, until you noticed how precisely they were cataloged. Their team lead was a woman named Director Ashman, who walked through the Undine with the measured attention of someone inventorying assets. She stopped at the mapping lab doorway on the second day. Kale was there. Of course he was. He was running a resonance comparison on data from the third moon they'd surveyed, something Marin hadn't asked him to do. He'd simply noticed an anomaly and started investigating it on his own. Director Ashfane studied him for a long moment. "This is the mapping lab," she said. "It's restricted to certified personnel." "He's with me," Marin said, from across the room before she'd fully decided to say it. The director looked at her, then back at Kale. Something shifted in her expression. recognition, or something adjacent to it. "What are you working on?" she asked him. And the question was different from the ones she'd asked everyone else. Less inventory, more attention. Kale explained the anomaly. He used precise language, correct terminology, and, when he noticed she was genuinely following him, dropped the slightly formal register he used when he was uncertain of his audience and explained it the way he explained things to Maren. Direct. Specific, without performing confidence, just having it. Director Ashfane was quiet for a moment when he finished. "How long have you been studying cartography?" 7 months, Kale said. Technically. He glanced at Maren. "I wasn't studying it. I was just here." Maren had a decision to make, and she made it without drama. "He found an error in the Dellon survey last month," she said. "The one that's been in the official charts for 11 years. Nobody caught it." The director looked at Kale again. "How old are you?" 14. Director Ashfane was silent. Then she pulled out a small data pad and wrote something on it, and handed it to Maren, not to Kale, which told Maren that the director understood something about how to handle a situation like this carefully. It was a scholarship authorization, pre-signed, the kind issued by the Research Authorities Academy, the institution that had produced more survey leads and deep cartographers in the last century than all the other programs combined. Admission was competitive. Adults applied, adults usually with existing qualifications. The age minimum is discretionary for exceptional cases, Director Ashfane said. It has been invoked 4 times in the Academy's history. She paused. "My name is on 3 of those files." Maren looked up from the pad. "Kale," the director said, and her voice had become something quieter than official. "I've been looking for someone with your particular way of hearing things for a long time." She let that land. "I wasn't expecting to find them in a restricted lab on a survey vessel. But I've learned not to argue with where I find what I'm looking for." She turned to go, then stopped. "The anomaly you found," she said. "Write it up formally and submit it under your own name. Don't let anyone else file it for you." She left. Kale sat with the headphones still around his neck and looked at the data pad Maren was holding. "Did that just happen?" "It did," Maren said. "Is she the most senior cartographic authority in the compact?" "Yes." Kale was quiet for a moment, in the way he was quiet when he was filing something very carefully and making sure it didn't break. "Why were you looking for me that first night?" he asked. "With the tea." Maren thought about that. "I wasn't looking for you," she said. "I was making tea." "You were there." She paused. It seemed inefficient to not bring 2 cups. Something in his expression did the thing it sometimes did, the quiet reorganization, the shift from watchful to something that looked like it might be, eventually, relief. He picked up the headphones, put them back on, turned back to the anomaly. Maren sat down at her own station and kept working. The moon outside made its low, ancient sound. Nobody had ever heard it before. 2 people were listening now, and one of them was writing it down in a battered notebook that would, several years later, be cited in the foundational literature of a new field of study that Kale would spend his life building. Maren wasn't in any of those citations. She had, on 3 separate occasions, been asked by researchers tracing the field's origins whether she had known what she was watching develop. She always gave the same answer. "I was just making tea," she said. "He was just there." "That's not an answer," one researcher told her. "It's the only one that's true," she said.